Welcome back to the Explainers. So picture this. We're stepping into a neon-lit holographic hacker lab today. We're going to strap in and completely decode the absolute foundation of network communication and security. We're talking about visualizing exactly how data travels and, more importantly, how it actually gets inside a system. It's all about ports, protocols, and the digital doors. Let's get into it. Now, think about this massive problem for a second. At any given moment, your computer or your router is just getting absolutely bombarded by a massive stream of invisible data packets. We're talking emails, streaming video, background updates, the whole shebang, all arriving at the exact same destination. So how does the system not just dissolve into total chaos? How do billions of packets know exactly which digital door to knock on when they show up? To really wrap our heads around this, let's use what we call the Megablock Analogy. Try picturing a server, or a whole network, not as some boring metal box with blinking lights in a data center, but as a massive, sprawling, neon-lit cyberpunk apartment building, a real megablock. And inside this colossal skyscraper, you've got thousands of different apartments. Inside each of those apartments, that's where a specific application or service lives, just waiting to receive its specific packages. So it really breaks down into two parts. On one side, you have the IP address. That's simply the Megablock street address. It literally just guarantees that a data packet gets routed across the internet to the correct massive building. But stopping at the front door of a giant skyscraper doesn't really deliver the package, right? And that brings us to the second part, the port number. Out of the 65,535 possible doors inside this building, the port number is what tells that data packet exactly which specific apartment door it needs to go knock on. But here's where it gets really fascinating. Even if your data packet manages to find the exact right apartment door, it can't just barge on in. It requires a protocol. You can think of a protocol as the strict set of rules, or basically the language, spoken by the specific application living behind that door. If a data packet knocks but doesn't speak the exact protocol required by whoever's inside, that door is staying shut. So the port is the door, and the protocol, that's the language you absolutely have to speak to get through it. All right, let's look at how this builds our network matrix. If you're studying ethical hacking or even just network defense, consider this your essential reconnaissance map of the primary ports we're casing today. We've got HTTP on port 80, that's our public lobby, HTTPS on 443, the secure lobby, FTP on 21 acting as the loading dock, and SSH on 22, the heavily guarded admin backdoor. Let's actually break these down one by one. We'll kick things off with the most common entry point by far, web traffic. This is literally how you, me, and billions of other regular web users enter the Megablock every single day. When you type a website name into your browser, you're essentially walking right up to the building and heading straight for the public lobbies. And that brilliantly illustrates our very first stop on the map, port 80. This is basically the grand, wide-open front door of the internet. Right behind door number 80 lives HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Now, HTTP is great for a few reasons, mainly because it's incredibly fast and gets you your web pages almost instantly, but it has one massive vulnerability. Everything is sent as unencrypted plain text. Just imagine standing in a crowded public lobby and shouting out your passwords, your credit card numbers, private messages for everyone to hear. Anyone intercepting traffic in this lobby can read your data like it's a wide-open postcard. Not ideal, right? Yeah, because of that glaring security flaw, the modern web had to pivot, and it pivoted to this door, port 443. This is the highly secure encrypted upgrade that actually runs the modern internet we use today. Now, what's really cool is the actual journey that happens at port 443, which we know as HTTPS. See, it's no longer just an open lobby, it's a VIP door. First, you arrive at the port. Second, the server has to present an identity certificate, kind of like a bouncer showing a badge to prove they work there. Third, your browser and the server perform this complex, encrypted secret handshake. And only then, in step 4, does the secure data transfer actually begin. If anybody is trying to eavesdrop now, all they're going to hear is absolute gibberish. So that covers our regular public web traffic. But what about the folks who actually run the Megablock? I mean, system administrators, webmasters, back-end developers, they aren't using the public lobby. They need specialized access to move heavy infrastructure around and configure the building's back-end. Which brings us to port 21, our next really critical entryway in this digital Megablock. Port 21 is reserved for FTP, the File Transfer Protocol. If we go back to our analogy, think of this as the building's digital loading dock. It's an absolute workhorse used for moving massive, heavy data boxes in and out of the server. Whenever you're uploading hundreds of high-res images or downloading giant databases, FTP is the protocol handling all that heavy logistics. So it's a very specialized door for a very specialized job. But if there's one single door that ethical hackers and network defenders obsess over more than literally any other, it's port 22. This is the ultimate target for network scans, and honestly, understanding it is absolutely critical. Port 22 is home to SSH, or Secure Shell. This is a heavily encrypted protocol used for operating network services securely over an otherwise unsecured network. Back in our Megablock, SSH is the heavily reinforced solid steel backdoor. Only the building manager, the root administrator, has the specific cryptographic key required to unlock this door. If an attacker manages to bypass the locks on port 22, they don't just get to look around the lobby. They gain full, unrestricted control over the entire building's power grid. It's game over. Because of that, the crucial point we need to make is this. As we map these doors, we really have to pause for a serious reality check. The source material for this explainer strictly mandates that everything, and I mean everything, must emphasize ethics and legal authorization. Mapping ports, scanning for vulnerabilities, testing these locks, this is strictly for defense. You only ever do this in legal, virtual lab environments, stuff like Metasploitable or Hack the Box. You never, ever target real websites or live infrastructure without explicit written permission, period. All right, with that firmly understood, let's look at how cybersecurity pros actually apply this knowledge in the real world. We call this the hacker's reconnaissance. It's the process of systematically scanning the digital perimeter of our megablock to see exactly which doors are left open to the public internet. So here's how that reconnaissance workflow actually plays out step by step. First, the ethical hacker identifies the target IP address. Basically, they locate the building. Next, using tools like Nmap, they scan for open ports. Imagine them walking down a massive hallway and just rattling all 65,535 doorknobs to see what gives. Third, they determine the running protocols to figure out what language the open doors are actually speaking. And finally, the ultimate goal is to secure any vulnerabilities they find. In this context, an open port isn't just a door anymore. It is a potential entry vector for an attack. When we map out the ultimate goal of network defense here, it becomes incredibly clear. You want your secured, necessary ports, like 443 for HTTPS, to be highly active and fully patched. You want your open, unused ports brought down as low as humanly possible. Honestly, if a service doesn't need to be running, you just shut the door. And most importantly, those exploitable ports, they absolutely must be at zero, no exceptions. And this brings us to a really fundamental law of network security. A port left open with no secure protocol listening is just a wasted lock. But a weak protocol, like maybe an outdated version of a service running behind that door, is effectively a picked lock. The relationship between the door, which is the port, and the lock, which is the protocol, well, that is the absolute foundation of keeping any system safe. Which leaves us with one final, maybe slightly unsettling thought to wrap up today's explainer. As data packets fly across the globe by the absolute billions every second, probing every single router and server they touch, if a digital door is accidentally left open and unguarded in your Megablock, who exactly is checking the locks? Is it you, or is it someone else?